Hello and welcome back, everybody, and Happy New Year. Hope you're having a wonderful start to your 2023 and had a great 2022. I absolutely love 2022. Had a lot of personal growth in my life and a lot of goals that I reached and a lot I accomplished throughout 2022. But I think 2023 is going to be just as special for myself and as well as many of you. So if you have any goals that you have set, just make sure that you really go for it and don't let the little things get in the way. Never look for an excuse to stop your path to a goal. Always find the excuses to continue going for it. So I guess that's enough of my little soapbox speech this evening. But again, as usual, thank you so much for joining me today. We have a lot to talk about here in terms of weather. So I'll go ahead and give you a quick game plan for today's video. I'll start off by looking at the current conditions throughout the country as well as the current hazards ongoing. And then we will transition into a quick forecast for tomorrow in terms of the overview. And then we're really going to dive into this storm system that will impact millions of Americans here throughout the next couple of days, including rounds of severe weather through sections of the southern U.S. and winter storm conditions into sections of the northern plains. And then we're going to continue to look at that, and then we'll just touch briefly on the long term pattern change going into the middle of January. But if you like the video, go ahead and hit the like button. And if you want to stay up to date with the always changing weather here that we have here in the United States, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. With that said, though, let's go ahead and get right into it. Looking at satellite imagery here. As you can tell, that low pressure really getting going over the four corners here on satellite with these bright colors over here indicating higher clouds and stormier weather. Overall, pretty clear weather here across the eastern United States, though, as we get prepared for that severe weather that is likely to move further to the east and really begin tomorrow. Also, getting a bit of a break here on the West Coast in terms of all the stormy weather we've been dealing with out there over the past week. All right, radar here correlating very well. I'll go ahead and look at the national stage real quick, but again, pretty quiet here throughout the southeast. A couple of showers up here into New England, nothing crazy. And then also some showers here throughout the Midwest, but this is really what we're going to be talking about here is this stormy weather here across the four corners. And as you can see here on radar, that weather is ongoing currently with some heavy mountain snow in these areas, as well as rain into the lower elevations. All right, so that's radar, correlates very well with our satellite imagery here on this Sunday evening. Go ahead and looking at the current National Weather Service hazards, watches and warnings that are currently issued. As you can tell, big storyline here is this big swath of winter weather advisories ongoing here into the northern plains. This bright pink color, winter storm warnings. This kind of, I guess, purplish color here are ice storm warnings. And then the lighter purple, I guess, if you will, are winter weather advisories. For what will be a lot of snow moving into these areas. We also have some flash flood watches issued here in the Arklatex region and in preparation of rain tomorrow, as well as rain that has already been falling over the past couple days there. Also, some wind advisories here into the southwestern sections of the United States as that low pressure gets going. And then here along the Gulf Coast, some dense fog advisories as we have that warm Gulf air advecting northward, helping to allow that fog to form a little bit easier in those areas. All right, so did want to give you a quick overview of tomorrow's forecast in terms of temperatures and wind, and then we'll really dive into the precipitation for tomorrow and throughout the week as the storm system pushes through the country. So these are high temperatures for tomorrow, and you can just see the super warm sector here across the southeastern United States. Temperatures getting into the 70s along the Gulf Coast, and even 60s as far north as a place like Indianapolis, Cincinnati, St. Louis, and even up maybe to Washington, D.C. tomorrow. And then, of course, as that low pressure will be positioned about here, colder temperatures on the northwestern side of that low, where we will be seeing those winter storm conditions. All right, low temperatures for tomorrow night, still this warm sector here with only getting as low as the 50s through a pretty big section here of the Ohio River Valley. And then, colder temperatures here into the northern plains and the Rockies out west as that low pressure helps to funnel in some colder air on the back end of it. All right, so let's go ahead and look at wind as well with this system. Just within the next 24-hour period, these are max wind gusts. So the brighter colors you see here, the stronger the winds. Still relatively quiet wind in terms of wind here across the southeast as well as the mid-Atlantic over the next 24 hours. But as that low pressure gets going, winds will increase here into the southern plains and even the Four Corners region, as well as up here into the northern plains as we begin to get that low pressure to deepen and that snow begins to fall going into the overnight and into tomorrow. All right, so let's go ahead and now dive into this storm system and what we expect with it as we go into this week. So, as you can tell here on Futurecast, let me actually bring this down a little bit so you can see the legend here at the bottom of the screen a little bit better. But stormy conditions ongoing here across the Four Corners with mountain snow and rain in the lower elevations. As we go ahead and bring this ahead, moving into tomorrow afternoon. Actually, let me bring this back a little bit. As we go into tonight, I do want to note that snow will begin to break out here across sections of the northern plains, beginning in areas like Nebraska and South Dakota, going into tonight, which is Sunday night. But as we go further ahead in time, now into Monday afternoon, that snow really gets going here into the northern plains. And you also see those storms begin to fire here into the Arklatex region, where we will likely have severe weather ongoing as we get into tomorrow afternoon on Monday. As we go into Monday evening and into the overnight, winter storm really gets going here into the northern plains. And we even have showers here into sections of the Midwest where severe weather won't be nearly as big of a problem, but still rainy conditions. So even in these areas that are kind of stuck between the winter storm side of this and the severe weather side of this, we'll still have to deal with some heavy rain throughout Monday and Tuesday. But even into Tuesday overnight, still storms ongoing here in these areas, causing problems there into the the southern part of the United States. Excuse me. So Tuesday afternoon, that storm system begins to push further off to the east and now getting extremely heavy snowfall rates here into a place like Minneapolis, northern Wisconsin, and even into the UP of Michigan. And while that is ongoing, that showery weather begins to move into sections of the northeast and into New England, as well as the Ohio River Valley up here. But further to the south, here on Tuesday, that severe threat will then shift into this area, into places like Alabama, Mississippi, even up towards Chattanooga, Tennessee on Tuesday. And then as we get into a Wednesday, let me move this ahead. Yeah, this is Wednesday afternoon now. Storms ongoing here into the Carolinas and even southern Virginia, as well as the Florida Panhandle. Maybe still getting some severe weather left over in those areas after impacting other areas earlier into the week. So let's take a in-depth look at these areas now. And actually, what I do want to do real quick, sorry, I'm going to do this on the fly because I forgot to pull it up. We're going to look at the SPC outlooks for tomorrow. No, sorry, I forgot to pull this up ahead of time, but this is tomorrow's outlook for these areas. Right now, we do have an enhanced risk currently bullseyed over really the Texarkana area up towards Little Rock and even into northwestern Louisiana, with other areas as far south as the Texas Gulf Coast and up to potentially southern Missouri, also having to deal with that slight risk. And then the marginal risk getting as far north even as northern Missouri. I know you can't see it in this map, but it does stretch up to those areas. So let's go ahead and take a look now at Futurecast for tomorrow as we have those threats to deal with. So this is Monday afternoon, and I do think we'll have a bit of a two-round scenario on Monday. So as we get into the afternoon, you see these storms begin to fire here in eastern Texas. And these storms themselves could become severe and begin to rotate and potentially produce tornadic activity. Those storms will then begin to push further to the east and north into Louisiana and Arkansas, and still producing damaging winds and potentially tornadoes as well. But what you also see going into sunset time here on Tuesday, you get another line of storms to form here on the back end of that, which can also produce a lot of those problems, including tornadic activity here across the same areas. So tomorrow you'll likely have one round of storms move through these areas, but don't let your guard down because then you will likely again see a second round going into the overnight hours of Tuesday. And eventually those storms begin to push out of these areas going into Tuesday morning and afternoon. All right, so next I'm going to show you is the Cape for tomorrow that we're working with here. Again, this is just kind of thunderstorm fuel, so the brighter the colors you see here, the easier it is for thunderstorms to get going and grow in height, and the easier it is for them to rotate. All right, so moving this ahead, you see that Cape begin to surge northward as we go into Monday afternoon here, as temperatures begin to heat up and those dew points rise from that Gulf of Mexico moisture. Cape values here, once you get past 1,000, is really whenever you begin to run into problems. And here into eastern Texas, we're approaching 2,000 in spots. So plenty of enough Cape here in those areas to produce those thunderstorms, and even surpassing 2,000 potentially in parts of southeastern Texas going into Tuesday evening. And then that Cape will eventually die down as we get into the overnight before eventually increasing again going into Tuesday afternoon areas further east. All right, so this is the significant tornado parameter. So much like Cape, the brighter the color, the worse it is, or the better it is for tornadoes, I guess, to form. Might be, I guess, a different way to word that. But again, as we go into Monday afternoon here, you see this significant tornado parameter begin to ramp up here in these areas, right into the Texarkana area, up through Little Rock, pretty much that area that is highlighted by the Storm Prediction Center for severe storms tomorrow. And you can see some of these values really get higher. And something I do want to note, you see these like little, I guess, blotches of higher colors. What that indicates to me is that this model is forecasting certain discrete supercells that are capable of producing significant tornadoes, or tornadoes that are rated EF2 or higher. So this model is signaling that here into sections of Arkansas as we go into late Monday into the afternoon. And then that's just the first round as we've been talking about. Then you get a second round here as we go into sunset, which again, you see these little areas with brighter colors indicating to me that some of these storms will become discrete and make it even more of a dangerous situation in terms of tornadic activity. Luckily, that will begin to die down in Texas and throughout the area as we go further into the overnight on Tuesday before flaring up again Tuesday afternoon into Dixie Alley. So let's go ahead and take a look at that now. Here across the southeast, might actually be better if I just do it this way and pull this ahead some. Yeah, we'll do that. Okay. So this is Tuesday, or I guess Monday night here. Still relatively quiet here across the southeast. Could have some storms, potentially even severe here into parts of Tennessee or western Tennessee and northern Mississippi going into Monday night, but it's still relatively quiet here across Dixie Alley. But as we move forward into your Tuesday afternoon, you're going to begin to likely see some of these storms refire. It looks like we're lacking a bit of forcing here compared to Monday. So you see a lot less convection overall, and it's a lot more sporadic here in these areas, which overall is good. But another problem that you get with that is it will likely be easier for the atmosphere to heat up with less rain already falling to kind of take some of that energy out of the air. So any storms that are able to fire and get strong enough can likely become long-lasting storms that impact a pretty wide area. So we'll go ahead and look at the significant tornado parameters for these areas as well going into Tuesday. All right, here we go. And again, going into Tuesday, you see some of these areas that begin to really flare up in brighter colors here into sections of Mississippi and Alabama, but even the potential for this all the way up into Tennessee to see tornadic activity, and again, as we go into Tuesday towards sunset, that really begins to flare up here into sections of the Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee border region, if you will. Then going into the overnight, that will begin to slowly diminish, but this is as far as this model goes. So again, dealing with severe storms into Tuesday night and Tuesday evening across Dixie Alley here. All right, so the next thing I want to show you now is the supercell composite. Since this is as far as this last model goes, I guess the best way to word this is I now have to use a different model. So we're going to have to use a different parameter, unfortunately. But this is still pretty similar. What this is going to show you is um, the conditions for supercells to form. So once again, the brighter the colors, the easier it is for these supercells to form. So we'll go ahead and move this towards Tuesday afternoon here again, here into Dixie Alley. Conditions are going to be the best through these areas. But as we go into Wednesday, this threat could shift potentially into the Carolinas a little bit. Although I think Wednesday will be a lot less in terms of severity. Could still potentially have some areas here that have enough ingredients left over to see some severe weather on Wednesday. So that is the look at some of the severe weather that we're going to have to deal with throughout a lot of those areas, going from Monday through Wednesday, likely seeing severe weather through at least portions of the southeastern United States. So I do want to go ahead and bring up this map again one more time, just to look at how this kind of clears out of the country. So again, we talked about the storms firing up on Monday here into the southeast, with that snow into the plains. And then Tuesday, again to recap, that moves to Dixie Alley with snow getting heavier into areas like Minneapolis, Wisconsin, northern Wisconsin, and the UP of Michigan. Then Wednesday, again, maybe some ingredients left over here throughout the Carolinas and potentially even the Mid-Atlantic for some severe weather. And then as we go into your Thursday, things will finally begin to clear out with maybe some leftover flurries here through the Midwest and potentially some snow here into New England, although we can iron out the details on that later on in time. All right, so I just wanted to give a quick recap on the system as a whole now that we've looked more in depth at the severe weather stuff. In terms of snowfall, though, I could see some areas exceeding a foot of snow here through southern South Dakota as the system really ramps up. A place like Minneapolis, it'll be a really tough cutoff, but I think around half a foot is probably a pretty safe bet there. And then that stretch of 6 inches will begin to stretch, I guess, all the way into northern Wisconsin and into portions of the UP of Michigan. Also, plenty of mountain snow out here in the Rockies, as we've been talking about. That will continue with this weather that we've been dealing with and just the onslaught of moisture into those regions. So ice, as we talked about, there are ice storm warnings here through a pretty big chunk of the of northern Iowa. Excuse me. Reasoning for that is this ice that is expected to fall, and this has uptrended since the past couple of days. Originally, we were looking at maybe a quarter of an inch of ice being about the max here, but models now suggesting maybe closer to 3/10 and even maybe isolated spots of 4/10 of an inch of ice, which is plenty enough to cause power outages as well as very treacherous roadway conditions. All right, so like I said, I did want to touch on the long-term pattern here that we are going to be dealing with. So I'm going to bring this back a little bit. All right, so this is about actually, let me go one more ahead. There we go. All right, so this is about a week from right now, and as you can see here on the projections here from the GFS, still dealing with this kind of ridging out in the east and warmer than average temperatures into the east a week from today. So this would be January 8th, excuse me, going into the 9th. But what we begin to see here, and I did not mean to press that button, sorry. All right, there we go. Sorry about that. But what we begin to see here is this ridge slowly as we go into the week of the 9th, kind of potentially break down a little bit, and we get to see maybe the storm track change to a little bit more favorable for some East Coast snow. Of course, this is a long way out, but it does at least signal the beginning of a change in the pattern, which could potentially lead to better conditions for snow falling here in areas that I guess are going to be in a bit of a snow drought over the next 2 weeks. So as you can see, the pattern eventually becomes a bit more favorable here in the east for snow as we get into the middle of January. And that's kind of what I think will happen. I think there will be about a 2-week window from the middle of January to the very beginning of February of snowier weather throughout the east. And we'll see if maybe that can dive south into areas of the southeast that haven't been so lucky to see snow this year. But Anyway, that's all I have for today. I'll try to get up early tomorrow and do a morning video just to go super in depth on the severe weather involving just tomorrow across that Texarkana region, and then maybe even talk a little bit about how that will likely evolve in the following days. But I hope everyone is off to a great start to their 2023. And again, if you liked the video, hit the like button and go ahead and subscribe for the latest information on our ever-changing weather. And I will see you all tomorrow.